Also, this afternoon, President Akufo-Addo, as we're learning, is likely to ease restrictions as Ghana's land borders. Now, this was actually revealed by the Information Minister, Oppong Nkrumah, who in a recent tweet revealed that the president has been engaged in a series of meetings on this matter. And there you have it on your screens right now, indicating the details of that. It states that yesterday and today, President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo has been engaged in meetings in preparation to announce the easing of restrictions at our borders and tackling the escalating fuel prices. We'll get to the issues of the fuel prices later, but this revelation, as we understand, obviously is coming at a time when Ghana's COVID-19 cases are significantly reducing, and fortunately we have all of the figures here for you. You can see it here, 7 new cases. That's what we've confirmed from the Ghana Health Service portal, which you have right here on your screens. And we also have active cases being 74, and the total number of confirmed cases across the country is 160,777. But in terms of the recoveries and discharges, we have 159,256 cases. So that's what we have. But the total number of the casualties as we speak is 1,445. That's the number of persons who have died as a result of the COVID-19 infections. But we do know as of now that the new cases that we have, 3 of these cases out of the 7 are currently in the Greater Accra region. But the total figures that we are dealing with right now amounts to 74. And so that's the situation as we have it now in terms of our total active cases in terms of COVID-19, bringing you a breakdown of figures as you just seen gone by. But fortunately, we've been joined now via Zoom by some persons who will help us understand this. Let's first of all start off from the perspective of the Ghana Health Service. Fortunate to have Dr. Franklin Asiedu-Bekwe, who's Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this afternoon on The Pulse. So, first of all, we're getting indications that the president may be announcing some restrictions in terms of the land borders. Is it informed largely by the numbers that we're seeing, the fact that we have less than 100 active COVID-19 cases?
Yes, thank you very much. So I think you're talking about easing some of the restrictions.
Precisely. Yes.
Yes. So I think if you look at the data as of now, I think this is about the best data we have had for the past 2 years. But you know, we've been somehow close to this era before. I mean, whereby we have very, very low figures, and then we have the advent of a variant, and there's a surge. But the only differentiating factor is that now we have vaccines. So prior to this period, we are not having vaccines, so people are not vaccinated. Now, as I speak, I would say that about 25% of Ghanaians are fully vaccinated. So there's a level of protection. So I think it's quite right if we try to do the easing, whilst we try to monitor. So we are the best time to do some easing, but we still want to be very cautious.
And I'm glad that you're touching on that last leg of being cautious. The concern out there is also about the figures in our sub-region and neighboring countries as well. Is the Ghana Health Service mindful of these figures, and what lessons are you drawing from neighboring countries and what's happening there as well?
Yes, so if you look at the curves in ECOWAS, we normally have these ECOWAS meetings on every Tuesday. The shape of the curve is the same in all the neighboring countries. So the burden of disease in our neighboring countries is about the same as Ghana. So there's very little about dilution effect if you decide to open the borders. So I think that unlike before, that people were not testing, now we think that the case burdens on both sides of the borders are fine. So I think we can decide to ease. But I think that what we want to look at is how are we going to do the easing. So our main focus is about it's about vaccination, because vaccination gives a level of protection, and that's what we want to focus on. So even if you decide to ease, we should have a borderline of being vaccinated before it goes borders.
I get the points there. Now, how about the protocols at the land borders? It has been one of the challenges for the Ghana Health Service as compared to the airports. It was easy installing safety mechanisms and trying to, as much as possible to check importation and persons who are coming into the country. But how's that going to be possible at the land borders? You agree it's going to be a very cumbersome exercise, isn't it?
Yes, so what we intend doing, you see, the land borders, we have port health, we have immigration, we have national security, they are all at the borders. So one critical thing we're going to be looking at is the vaccination cards. And then that's going to be the main tool to enable you cross. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at. And
Explain that for me briefly. What you're going to have is that persons who need to move through the borders must possess certificates from where exactly?
yes, what they are saying is that if we are going to be easing, we are not likely to be tested at the borders. What we're looking for, we're going to look for your possession of a vaccination card or vaccination identity. So that is what we're going to be inspecting on the borders.
How about
And that
the
one,
right?
and
Okay.
that will be done by the immigration and then the portal staff across. So clearly, those are the things that we are considering. So unlike maybe the airport that we tested, we'll be looking at your possession of a vaccination card. But these are early days yet, and that is what we think that will be the game changer if you need to open the borders.
Indeed, and we'll come to some other aspects. Dr. Bakwe, just hold on for us. Also joining this conversation is Dr. Thomas Anaba, Executive Director for the Africa Center for Health Policy Research and Analysis. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the pulse. So you've heard from the Ghana Health Service. They are proposing a number of mechanisms that will be put in place at Ghana's land borders. I'm sure that you've listened to a few of them. Are these measures sufficient? And what more should we be on the lookout for as we prepare to ease restrictions at these borders?
Yes, I've heard of some of the restrictions they're going to put at the land borders. But what I'm wondering is how they are going to implement this in a very porous borderline. Our land borders have several unapproved routes that people are using. And if anybody wants to dodge the payment of $150 to do a test before he comes in, then it's as much as hiring a motor that can take him through one of those unapproved routes to come in and paying less than $20 to get into Ghana. So I think that what they have to do perhaps is to get the immigration service and the military or whoever to make sure anybody coming in should come in, but should come in through the approved route, or else it will come to naught if we put all these measures at the land borders and people still find their way through unapproved routes to come into the country.
That has been the difficulty for government as well. They've explained that over the years. But looking at the fact that we have reduced numbers, active cases somewhere around 74, is that not a significant work done by the health service for us to say we're comfortable now, at least let's go ahead and ease restrictions at the borders?
Work done by everybody, including the whole world. The numbers are going down everywhere. Countries that people were dying in thousands a day are virtually reduced to less than 100. So that is something good that we have to applaud everybody, and the contribution of all citizens in the world who abided by the guidelines of COVID-19. That notwithstanding, I can still say that perhaps we are not testing as we are supposed to test from the very beginning, because I don't remember the last time a COVID test was tested on anybody who has a cold or who has traveled and returned to Ghana in the community that I stay. I think that even the laboratories are still not spread across the country as we wish. though WHO gave us a lot of funding to equip virtually all our district hospitals with sufficient equipment to diagnose COVID-19, we still have limited spaces for people to go and test for COVID-19. But all in all, I think that COVID-19 has come, and then people are beginning to understand it. We are understanding the management, so we don't have the fear of it again. We have the vaccine, as you said, 25% of Ghanaians are vaccinated. But we shouldn't forget that other people have got the COVID-19 without having symptoms. So they today work with some amount of immunity against COVID-19.
And Doc, these are critical matters that we have to explore. Fortunately, Dr. Bekwe Asiedu is also on with us. So, Doctor, there's first of all the concern about Ghana's porous borders and the fact that even though you may be instituting checks at the land borders, there are a number of unapproved routes here in the country. How do you intend, for instance, if the president goes ahead to ease the restrictions, how do you intend to enforce compliance then?
No, so I think that the border is made up of several agencies. So we have the immigration, you have national security, you have customs, you have port health. So they are all together at that enclave, and they're working together to ensure that is done. If you're talking about the unapproved routes, clearly it does fall in the domain of national security and immigration. But I think that it's early days yet. But what we want to say is that
precisely why I'm making the point, because they've been at the borders for some time now, and yet we've had people come through unapproved routes. The concern is that if a person carrying the virus, for instance, uses one of these routes, that may compromise the gains that you've made at the Ghana Health Service. So it has a bearing on your service, isn't it?
Yes, but what is good now is that, as I told you, if you look at the curves in ECOWAS countries, they are about the same on both sides. So we are not much fine. If you cross from, let's say, our country to our country, we are not likely to change our figures much. But as far as I'm concerned, national security and immigration will work as much as possible to ensure that we minimize this movement of persons through the unapproved routes. And then let me say that, you see, in terms of testing,
right,
the figures we are having here, there are two main reasons. One is that, a lot of people have been exposed to COVID, either indirect or direct. So there's some studies that there's a prevalence of about 70%. So meaning that about 10% of the population have been exposed. That gives us the level of immunity. And then we also have reasonable number of these people vaccinated. So somehow there's a lot of immunity built in the population. I mean,
are you then suggesting that we're closer to achieving herd immunity? Is that where we are getting to?
We don't have the clear evidence yet, but if you look at the studies being done, it tells you that clearly there's a lot of protection in the general population. And if you have, before it was clearly the Omicron got a lot of people exposed. So we're thinking that if a lot of people have been exposed, there's some level of antibodies have been built in them. And maybe that's the reason why we are not seeing so many cases. But COVID is not over yet. You may have a new variant appearing, but then what is good is that when you have a new variant and they have the level of protection or immunity, they are not likely to have any severe form of the disease or even get an infection. So that is what is good. So we as a service are still pushing so that Ghanaians get vaccinated, so that we build that level of immunity that's needed. If you look at other countries like the UK and the US, they are having, by evidence, about 60-70% of their population vaccinated. So in that case, when you are exposed to a new variant, you are not likely to get any severe form of the disease. And that's what we are pushing for. As far as I'm concerned, there have been countries that have been flip-flopping. You see, it depends on the exposure and the level of the viruses that come to you. We have been somehow consistent. So we don't normally just easily ease. We take our time and we ease gradually. So that's how we're taking some time. But I think that now the figures look quite good enough.
Right.
And globally, it appears that the figures are on the low side. So that's why we will try to ease a bit. But I think that the president is the one who will give the final word. But I think as a service, it's a good time for us to do some easing.
I see. A good time to ease restrictions. How about the other engagements or approach that we know government adopted at the start of the whole fight against the pandemic. The president talked about checking further spread and also going ahead to track and then ensure that we immunize. That's the third leg of the approach. Are we going to give up on that now that we're seeing the cases drop, 74 active cases? Some say it's as though we don't even have COVID-19 in the country anymore. So are you giving up on that leg of the fight?
No. So as I said, there's a task force looking at the data and what needs to be done. So we have 3 levels. We have the vaccination, we have the PCR, we have the antigen. The idea is of which ones should be eased. And I think that clearly is being discussed. Hopefully the next few days will come clear the level of easing. As I said, there's a lot of discussion what level of easing should go at the airport, what should go on at the land borders. And those are discussions. The next few days will be clear about the level of easing. But I think that the data is reasonably good for us.
Right. While we may be happy at the gains that we've made now, there's also concerns about the super spreaders. One of them is the large occasions that we have and festivities. One of them is fast approaching, Easter as well. Are you keeping your eyes on that, and what protocols or measures are you putting in place to check that as well?
So we are pushing for the vaccine. So the next few weeks, we do another round of nationwide vaccination exercise. Because what we are focusing on is to make sure that the Ghanaian is protected by vaccine. At times, adhering to the protocols becomes challenging. But we think one sure way can offer protection is the vaccination. So we'll do another round of vaccination. We are hoping that particularly the urban areas, that are the key hotspots, will get people vaccinated, immunized. In that case, even if you get the infection, it will be of a lower level, and the severity will also be on a lower level. So that is what we hope to do. And we also keep on so preaching that let's maintain the distance, particularly if you are not vaccinated. And then you also need to wash your hands with soap and running water. So far as we don't have the total herd immunity, we still need to be abiding by the protocols.
Yes, but my concern is about Easter as well. Your eyes are on that, isn't it?
Yes. So we'll keep on engaging the Christian community. You know, the last time they actually came clear with the set of protocols or guidelines to guide the general population. And I think that for COVID, you need to be looking on, your eyes have to be on the board on a daily basis. So anything can change. You know, the last just a few months before the Xmas, we had very low figures. Then Omicron came and changes. So we'll keep on monitoring the situation and still be engaging the partners.
Right.
Be sure that we
just before I bring in Dr. Anaba, there's this final aspect about the general decline in adherence to the safety protocols. What's your message to Ghanaians out there who are of the opinion that we're out of the woods? Dr. Bekwe? Dr. Bekwe, if you can hear me, I'm asking that what would you say to Ghanaians, some of them who are not adhering to the protocol, saying that we're out of the woods at this moment?
No, for us, we are not out of the woods yet. You see, we only be out when WHO comes back and say that the pandemic is over. So far as WHO have not said we are out, we are not out. So we still push for adherence to protocol. But for us, what we are focusing on now is the vaccination. Vaccination, vaccinated. When you are vaccinated, then your chances of getting infection is minimal. Even if you get infected, you get less severe form of the disease. So let's vaccinate. And when, particularly if you are indoors, wear a mask. And I think that should be a main message.
I thought that would have been the last one, but I don't know if your attention has been drawn to this. Some videos or pictures circulating on social media indicating or alleging that some of the vaccines have expired. Are these claims true? Have you come across some of these things, and what do you have to say to them?
No, the vaccines never expired. You know, as far back as late last year, there were clear guidelines on how to use the Pfizer. So there was an extension of the vaccines by 3 months. So it's a clear guideline, and we can never use expired vaccines. Let me say, as we speak now, we have over several vaccines around. You see, in the time past, there was scarcity of vaccines, and now vaccines are not scarce. There are a lot of them, and because of our good programs, partners are willing to give us more vaccines. So we will never use any expired vaccine on any Ghanaian.
Dr. Bakwe, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. Now let's wrap up with Dr. Thomas Naba, who is with the Africa Center for Health Policy and Research. So, Doc, here we are. The assurance is, yes, Easter may be approaching, but then we're keeping our eyes on vaccination. What's your final words and analysis on this matter?
No, thank you very much. Just happy that very soon they'll be opening the borders so that people can move freely and do business and get some income for their families. What I would advise is that we still all keep looking at WHO to finally declare that the pandemic is over. If that is not done, everybody should take himself there. If you are able to get a face mask and be in a crowd with a face mask, I would say if it's good, you still do it. Keeping hygiene is something good, whether there's COVID-19 pandemic or there's no pandemic. It's good to keep your hand hygiene and then the rest. And also, government should try as much as possible to make sure we get equipment in all districts to be able to diagnose COVID-19. The way it is never going to go away completely. It may not be a pandemic again, but it may have some local effects in some selected areas in the world, which we don't know whether Ghana will be part, so that hospitals can easily diagnose COVID-19, initiate treatment, so it doesn't become an epidemic in Ghana for us, while other countries are enjoying pandemic-free. Remember, one thing I'm happy he said in his speech is that a lot of people have had COVID-19 exposure already, which I tend to say some of us feel vindicated, because when we used to tell government that the number was more than what they were quoting, they didn't accept it. Today, one of the directors is telling us that some of the things that is making the numbers reduce is because several people have already been exposed to it. And this was collaborated by the West African Center for Cellular Biology of Infectious Pathogens. That as at that time we were having less than 100,000, their research showed that almost 1 million Ghanaians have already been exposed to COVID-19. So once many people are exposed to it and many are taking the vaccines, very soon we'll be free to walk freely without face masks if it is worrying us. And at least we'll go back to business as normal, and then everybody can make ends meet.
Dr. Thomas Naba, thank you for joining us.